That. Oh, thank you, Paul. You didn't even need me to forget to tell you. So excellent. All right. So welcome to part 2 of the supervisor orientation, and that is for member and site supervisors. So we have a full agenda today. So we, of course, want to welcome you. And there are a lot of people here today who weren't here last week. And so we do want to introduce people again and make sure that you know who to contact for what sort of questions. We have some very important and exciting news for you about some revisions to the project. And then we want to talk about important dates. People have been asking what happens when and how. And so today is the day where Lisa's going to enlighten us about that onboarding flow. Then we want to have a chance for you to share, those of you who are a little farther along in the onboarding process and have already recruited some of your prospective members. We'd like to hear from you and how did that work? What strategies did you have? And to share with others who may not be quite as far along in the process. We have some just sort of bits and pieces of essential information that will help you onboard your members. And then a very critical part that is a requirement for us as a project team is that we need to review AmeriCorps policies and make sure that everybody is absolutely clear on the policies that we all need to follow. And then Paul will give us a little recap about the background checks, because some of you have now gone through that process and may have some questions. And then Lisa will tell us about member profiles and timesheets in our data management system, Learns. And then we will also, that should just be 10, I'm sorry, the website. And Paul will take us through the website. And then of course we want to have a Q&A to answer any questions. So again, it's so important for you to know that there are a lot of partners collaborating on this project. So Literacyworks, CLLS, the Pacific Library Partnership, California Volunteers, AmeriCorps California, lots of people involved in bringing this fantastic opportunity to California. So just to be clear on who does what on the Literacyworks project team. So we are here to support you for everything about AmeriCorps, what is related to your AmeriCorps initiative. And so if you have questions about training and programming, please, I'm the one that you can talk to about that. Lisa Thompson is our Learns guru. She will be helping you with data entry, tracking, and reporting. Paul Heavenridge is the Literacyworks Executive Director. He has the overall project oversight for this initiative, and he will also be helping you with the background check information and any questions you might have about living allowances and benefits. Bev. Oh, Bev, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I got it. I was a little back and forth. I'm Bev Schwartzberg from the California State Library, and most of you I know, but some of you are new to CLLS, and you should know that I am the primary person, along with Allison Giuffredo at the State Library, who handles CLLS. We're essentially your program officers. I'm a library program consultant at the State Library, and Allison is a grants analyst. And we're the people who help you with your state funding and with all things California Library Literacy Services. So we're one of the partners in this initiative. And I also want to introduce, in absentia, Sherilyn Hunt. Some of you know Sherilyn. She recently retired as a literacy coordinator, and she is helping us this year with an associated project called Literacy Initiatives which provides training and other support to CLLS programs. Every dollar that the state gives us for CLLS goes to you guys, the individual libraries, which leaves us with no money to provide training. So Literacy Initiatives is a special program that provides training for you. We've seen a lot of it over the last couple of years during the pandemic. You will continue to see a lot of it as this year goes forward. And Sherilyn is the senior project coordinator for that. So Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen some of the upcoming trainings, and boy, there's a lot of good stuff in store and coming up soon too. So we know that you have a lot of questions, and we absolutely want to take the time that we need to answer those thoroughly. Some of the questions we may not have answers for, but we will get you answers. Those of you who were able to come last week saw our AmeriCorps California Volunteers Program Officer, Iram Jabbar. And so quite often if we say, I don't know about that, let me ask our program officer, she's the one who will get information for us. So a lot of the questions that you have are very detailed or unique. And so we don't have answers off the bat, but we will save your questions if they're in the chat box, or if you're asking them verbally, we'll make note of those and we will get back to you. At the end of each segment of today's webinar, we will have opportunities to turn off the PowerPoint and for us to have a Q&A. So you can either ask your questions in the chat box or verbally. Okay, so we're just going to ask Bev to give us an update. There are some interesting developments having to do with our project, and Bev is going to lead us through those.
So good morning, everyone. So most of you are going to be happy to hear this news, and a few of you may have questions, and we will deal with those questions individually. We had originally said member start date was early October, but due to circumstances beyond the control of this team, we have moved up. We moved up that start date once, and now we're going to try to move it up again. And I know a lot of you are experiencing some delays with getting member files ready, with getting the background checks done. So hopefully this will be a relief. The member start date can be on or after October 17th. So that's moving it up just 1 week. And if you have questions, please hold them. We know they're individual questions. We'll try to resolve them. Your member start date also has to be on or before the cutoff dates that we reviewed last week. And I believe, is it December 5th for full-time members and December 30th for half and quarter time members? Those are the latest enrollment dates. So you can begin enrolling members, or literally members can begin their service October 17th. And they can begin service if they're full-time members and they're having a later start, no later than December. Well, if you guys remind me of the date, that would be helpful. December 3rd or 5th and December 30th for half-time and full-time members. What was that, Kathy?
December 5th, yeah, and we'll go over that.
So we're also moving up the date of member orientation to be October 20th from 12:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. It will cover some of the same material you've seen before, such as unallowable and prohibited activities, but will also be more of a warm welcome to CLLS. We also understand that you will be giving training and orientation to members in your program, and we will be providing statewide ongoing training for them throughout the year. But that first member orientation is where members take their AmeriCorps pledge and they hear some fundamental program basics that are important for them to understand through the year. They will have signed off on some of these things in their member service agreement, but they still need to hear about it from us. Okay, so next slide. So some of you may have seen the agreement that had the member living allowances based on, it was actually based on that one, the original one was based on 26 pay periods or living allowance periods per year. We're going to modify that to 23 because members will be starting with the second pay period in October. So 23 periods. It actually means that a living allowance goes up slightly. This is the amount, but it doesn't count the withholding. Please know that members are going to have FICA and for their regular tax withholding based on their W-4 taken out. But for full-time, members will receive, I believe it's a little over $1,100 twice a month. Half-time members receive $391 and some change twice a month, and quarter-time members receive $130 plus some change twice a month. So those are the revised member living allowances. So members receive their living allowances over 23 periods. So the next slide. So the last date to enroll members, thank you, here's the slide, is for full-time members December 5th. You do want to start them as soon as possible, and I'll explain why. And for half and quarter-time members, it's December 30th. Service has to be completed by September 30th, 2023. We have asked California volunteers if there can be any waiver of that. We will let you know if there's any change, but that's when our program year ends, right? So we can start the next one, October 1st. We want to make sure that members have enough time to complete service hours. That's why full-time members can't enroll and begin service after December 5th. It's possible for members to serve more than 8 hours a day, but we want it to be possible for them to get their service hours in. So a full-time member serves 1,700 hours a year. Typically, a full-time employee for most of your systems is 2,080 hours. It's not true everywhere, but that's for a 40-hour work week. So you can see there is a little stretchiness there if they don't start quite on October 17th. But we don't want people being in a situation where they'd have to work or not work. They'd have to serve 12 hours a day. That doesn't seem like a reasonable or feasible thing to do. So that's why those are the last date to enroll members. We want to make sure they have enough time to complete their service hours. And hang on one second. And the living allowance would begin on their start date. So one of the things I have to say that the advantage of enrolling a member early is the living allowance isn't a wage or salary. So the hours you serve, you don't get paid per hour. You get a living allowance for the time period you serve. So if you don't start until December, your living allowance, which is that fixed amount 2 times a month, starts then. So you might have lost out on a month of living allowance because you weren't serving and you didn't need the living allowance for then, right? So be aware that if people do start a little late, that their total living allowance for the service year may be lower. So if you have any questions about that, please let me know. So the next slide is members are allowed to serve more than 8 hours a day. It shouldn't say work, it should say serve more than 8 hours a day. That's okay. But members are exempted from state overtime laws. In general, they're exempted from a lot of employment laws. They have to be informed at the time of enrollment that they may be required to serve more than 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week or both, but only if your program is going to do that. And they must be allowed to opt out of the National Service Program at that time. So if when you're enrolling a person in December and you think, to make up those hours, if you want to take 2 weeks off, you may have to have some days where you serve longer than 8 hours, members can still opt out. But it's important to know that under California state law, AmeriCorps members are exempted from California wage and hour laws. Under the California Labor Code, AmeriCorps members are exempted from state overtime laws, but members must be informed at the time of enrollment that they may be required to serve in excess of 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week and must be allowed to opt out of the National Service Program at that time. The law also prohibits discrimination against participants for refusing to work more hours for a legitimate reason. So you can't penalize someone who says, no, I can't do this service period. I have childcare or some other reason. So just be aware of that. For most members, this isn't going to be an issue. It's certainly not going to be an issue probably for your half-time and quarter-time members, but you do want to be aware.
Hi, Rosa. See, aren't you upset we don't have our cookies?
Okay. You just need to mute that person, and that's fine. And okay, and then for member service hours, you want to think through the scheduling to ensure that members do have a strong and positive experience. Members who complete their service hours ahead of schedule may have less motivation to continue serving through the end of the program year. So if someone serves their 450 hours as a quarter-time member and doesn't put anything more on the time card or doesn't, meet your expectations for service, and they will not receive a living allowance for the time they're not performing service. So you have to think about it, help them plan out. AmeriCorps does provide some support during the year, especially for things like budgeting and how to survive on a living allowance and stuff like that. But you want to think about this, and we're happy to think through it with you. So I think that's my last slide, Kathy.
So what questions do you have? This is some new information. So let's see, I have not been monitoring the chat box.
I do see a question from Tim, which is, if a member has another part-time job, can they watch an archive of the orientation, or will there be another session? We do plan on repeating the orientation, but we can't guarantee there'll be a time to meet your member. They should watch the recording. We would like everyone to take the oath live. If they cannot do it during the group session, they should do it with you personally. But that's a great question, Tim. We do understand that half-time and quarter-time members certainly may have other demands on their time, whether they are students or parents or employees. So yes, that is why we will be recording things, but there will be a second option for the member orientation.
Great. And Regina asks, do we need to put all of the organization logos, the AmeriCorps logos, on our communications or informational handouts? Yes. Yes, you do. You need to acknowledge that this is an AmeriCorps initiative and activity.
She's also referring to CLLS logos, if you read the question.
You hadn't gotten there yet. Okay.
Yes, so I did respond that she does need to put AmeriCorps logos on everything, and then Bev is going to look into whether the CLLS logo, the California logo, are also required on all documents. So coming soon.
Yeah. Well, I can answer a question, which is, if you are using CLLS funds or matching funds that you report on your CLLS annual final report, you should meet the state standards. And I know that those are changed a little bit in your latest agreement. Please use the CLLS logo and the California State Library logo, not the State of California logo, but the California State Library logo. We'll be making that available on libraryliteracy.org, the CLLS website, shortly. So that is a new requirement. People are just seeing it in their funding packets. Not saying it has to dominate everything. We're happy to work with you on placement. But if something is CLLS oriented, please try to use the CLLS logo and the California State Library logo. Thanks.
Yep. So Sabrina asks, do their AmeriCorps trainings, we release them for count towards their service hours? I'm assuming yes. Yes, indeed. So training and professional development is actually a big part of this service year. It is a requirement for members, and it's part of their development. And so we absolutely want to count those hours. The literacy logo does not have to be used.
Literacyworks logo. I don't know that question. Answer to that question.
Paul, do you want to chime in?
We know AmeriCorps has to be used, and if you're using CLLS funds, you have to use those things. But
well, I would say no, you don't have to use the Literacyworks, though. You know, if you want to, it's a nice logo. I mean,
it is a nice logo.
We are the program. We are doing all the programming here. So if you, but I would say it's optional if you'd like to.
Yeah, it is a very nice logo, and we want to thank Literacyworks. But remember, if you use a logo, you should be able to answer questions about what that logo is. We would have to give you some training probably on it. So, and Juan asked, can all the logos be provided in high res? Yes, we'll do our best, Juan, to get them to you. Absolutely.
Antonio, I think lots of people probably have this same question. So Bev, do you want to answer?
Yeah, I'd like to tackle that. So Antonio, we have a waiting list of people who are interested in having full-time members. So if you, and we don't want to find out December 5th that we can't fill it. Although if you want to fill it, it's possible to fill it with 2 half-time members, and we can talk about that, but we can't, some people have asked the other way, can we take 2 half-time members and make it a full-time member, which we can't do for you. But what we can do is keep talking to you. And if reasonably you do not think you'll be able to fill it, let us know, because there may be another program waiting on you. We do want to fill these slots, and we understand the full-time slots in some ways are the most desirable in terms of the size of the living allowance, and in particular, the size of the education award, because you get that boost from the state of California that takes the 6,000-ish amount that comes from the Siegel Education Award, which is the federal education award, and it boosts it for people in California to $10,000. That is a very handsome education award. Please know those education awards are not cash in hand. They're like a voucher you can use for educational costs. But when you take into account the living allowance plus the education award, you know, that's about as sweet a deal as we can offer. So it's significantly less sweet for half-time and quarter-time members for a variety of reasons. So Antonio, just keep talking to us along the way, because there may be some program right now that's sitting there salivating, thinking we could get a full-time member for only $5,000. It's a deal. So just keep talking with us.
Okay, I think that's it for all the chat box questions. Does anybody have a verbal question? No. Okay. Lisa, do you want to take us through the
Absolutely.
important
Hi,
date?
everybody. Again, I'm Lisa Thompson, and I am the project coordinator. So I do a lot of the database work, and I just wanted to go over with you. Let me share my screen. Having some difficulties here. There we go. I wanted to go over with you some of the important dates that you all are going to want to know about and have asked me about. So for onboarding and training dates this year, these have already occurred, and I just wanted to clarify them, that we had our first supervisor orientation with all of you via Zoom on September 29th. A great many could come, and that was wonderful. For those who couldn't, we did post the PowerPoint in PDF format on the Literacyworks AmeriCorps.com website, .org website, as well as a video of our Zoom. September 30th was the deadline for getting our local contributions from the sites for the program. And if you haven't been able to submit that payment yet, please contact Paul Heavenridge to arrange. And today's October 6th, and today's the second part of our supervisor orientation. Again, this will be available as a PowerPoint PDF on the website. Give us a couple days to prepare that, and the video will also be up. Now, going into future dates, we again had to revise our AmeriCorps member start date 1 week out to October 17th. So your AmeriCorps members will not be able to start until that date. October 20th, again, is the 1 week out date that we have put for the first member orientation and oath taking via Zoom. We will repeat that for our members who come on later in November, approximately a month later, but we'll decide that date depending on how many people enroll. If we get a ton of people enrolling by, let's say, November 1st, we'd have it probably earlier so they can take their oath. December 5th is the deadline to enroll full-time members. December 30th is the deadline to enroll half-time and quarter-time members. Here are training dates for supervisors that are going to be coming up throughout this year and into 2023. We are going to perform those monthly training calls. They will be 30 minutes in length, so they'll fit nicely into your day. They are required. And so we've offered you 3 options here for times that you could come. You could pick one of those. You do not have to go to all 3. You just go to one of these a month. So you could do the Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. We'll also be conducting site visits and evaluations every 6 months. That'll be mostly conducted by Kathy and myself. And then we'll have ongoing training throughout the service year, which will make that calendar and what's available. We'll let you know what's going on with that. Here are the national days of service for the AmeriCorps program, and also California volunteers have put this together. Your members will be required to serve on these days. Now, obviously, a lot of these are federal holidays. Libraries may be closed. If they are, your member can serve at your library on a different day as part of a day of service. Or if they want to go join another event in their community that's on this federal holiday, they are more than welcome to. And this will count towards their hours. And so we have MLK Junior Day, AmeriCorps Week, which is done every year through all AmeriCorps programs. There's Cesar Chavez Day, and then also the 9/11 Day of Remembrance. California Volunteers has also told us about a volunteer week through the state of California, and we will let you know if that is coming along too, as we get, closer to that date and it's finalized. And that is it for this presentation, that part of it. Any questions about these dates? If they seem confusing to you or you have any questions about them, let me know.
Nothing in the chat box.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go forward with the flow. So this is how things are going to progress in the program. There have been definitely lots of questions about this. Oh, it
And
looks
I'm
like
sorry.
Abigail. Yeah, Abigail's raised her hand.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Somebody just put it in the chat. I was a little confused about what people are expected to do, like on the day of service. Is it just to do something that recognizes the purpose of that day, or are they supposed to maybe attend like city functions? Sometimes we have a lot of events going on some of those days that you mentioned, except maybe the AmeriCorps week. But so I need some clarification on that.
Can I jump in, Abigail? I think that's a great question. Members can participate in community events, and that includes your city plan events. They don't have to plan something special. They can participate in an ongoing event and just represent CLLS AmeriCorps initiative there. Or you can plan a special event, or it could be. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, but it's meant to be a day of service. So something that highlights service or is a service action. So it can be both awareness or actually a big service project.
Okay, thank you.
And one of the ways that, it is important for your AmeriCorps members to feel like AmeriCorps members and to be part of a cohort. And so those national service days might be an opportunity for members in a particular region to get together and to volunteer to serve together on those particular national service days. They might actually, if there's something big going on, say in San Francisco or LA, they might then go and meet other AmeriCorps members from other programs. So it's a nice networking opportunity for them too. Okay, Jamie asks, are they required to work a certain number of hours on those days? I.e., if they're part-time and typically serve in 4-hour shifts, would that be sufficient?
And my answer is yes, and that you're not compelled to serve 8 hours on a day of service, especially if you are someone who normally works 4 hours a day somewhere else. We do anticipate having additional training from AmeriCorps that we'll share with you, from California Volunteers that we'll share with you about days of service. So some AmeriCorps members who started already in August, they've already completed 1 day of service on September 11th. We'll just keep you posted. There is training and information about that. We just wanted to give you a heads up about the days of service. Shanti asked a question about serving virtually, such as online tutoring. And Shanti, we're going to have to take that question out of this call because there was a lot of flexibility during the pandemic, but I know that AmeriCorps is refining its guidelines on that. So I'm not prepared to answer finally on that question of online tutoring. And I don't know whether that, Shanti, whether your question was about a day of service when the library might have been closed, or whether it's in general about virtual service. Sabrina said, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I believe the intention of the National Service Days is that they are supposed to serve in a different special way. Yes. that honors the whatever day is being commemorated. So that honors the spirit of Cesar Chavez. Okay.
So they can do their regular service and go table at farmers market and celebrate the day. But it's not saying that they can't do both, but the intention is to honor that day of service. Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, before Lisa gets into the onboarding flow, which I know many of you are dying to know about, do we have any other questions? Okay, we're gonna save, if anybody does type anything in the chat box, we're gonna save them until after Lisa's done with this segment. Okay.
All right, onboarding flow. Now, this is how the flow of events are going to go for both AmeriCorps members and you at the CLLS sites. So the first step would have been that your CLLS library filled out an AmeriCorps application. I'm sure all of you have done that already. That's why you've been accepted into the program. Next would have been that the CLLS library site agreement between Literacyworks AmeriCorps and the library site was signed and accepted by Literacyworks. Next up, we would have done the memorandum of understanding between Literacyworks AmeriCorps and the library site would have been signed and accepted by Literacyworks. Next up, we would then invite site and member supervisors who will work directly with the AmeriCorps members to complete their national service criminal history checks, which are TrueScreen and field print. So most of you should have received an invitation to do TrueScreen and field print. And I appreciate those of you who have reached out to me and let me know that there are other people working in your program that I didn't know about, and I have sent them invitations. Please know that if there's anyone else who will be supervising an AmeriCorps member in any capacity in the program, they do need their background check, and please do email me their names and we'll get them started on the process. Once your background checks are complete and they're adjudicated by us online, your sites may begin service with any members who are also adjudicated. So you are free to start working. Both you as sites and member supervisors and AmeriCorps members all have to have passed and been adjudicated for the background checks to begin working together. The member recruitment already started, but again, as we said earlier, it goes through December 5th for full-time members and December 30th for half-time and quarter-time members. So when you find some good prospective applicants, they will fill out the CLLS AmeriCorps member application that we gave you a template for. You guys will then interview and offer positions to the applicants. Next up, once you've decided on an applicant, you will forward that application via email to me, and then that triggers me to start the process of getting your member onboarded. I will invite the applicants to complete the TrueScreen and field print checks just as you did. And once their background checks are complete and adjudicated, they may start service at your site. And again, that can be no earlier than October 17th now. Next up, we'll have everybody sign the member service agreement, including the member position description. So that will be signed by the members and the site supervisors. And then we would like a copy of that. As part of the member service agreement, your full-time members can enroll in benefits like healthcare and childcare. Then our next step would be, this is actually happening simultaneously, but we will be enrolling them in e-grants, which is also called the AmeriCorps portal. And we'll have to get this process done and finished no later than 7 days after their start date. So we will know from you on what day they did start, and we'll have to get all of their paperwork done within e-grants at that time. And then the member themselves will also be invited to complete their profile there. We'll have a W-4 signed, and we'll need a copy of that. And then once the member's accepted and good to go, I'll enroll them in the America Learns Impact Suite, which I've already invited all the supervisors to join in on. Again, we will finalize member enrollment no more than 7 days after the member start date. So we will be on a time crunch there, and we'll need all of these documents signed and done by 7 days after they start. Okay, so as for training of the AmeriCorps members, again, we have their first orientation via Zoom on October 20th from 12:30 to 5 p.m. We will repeat that exact same training in November for our later start members. The PowerPoints and the videos will also be available on our website for them to look at. We will also give them training in timesheets, progress reports, and the CLLS roles and goals on America Learns. We'll be teaching you supervisors also how to help the members with these processes, because it'll be a nice steep learning curve for them at the beginning. And then we'll provide them with ongoing training throughout the service here, and we'll give you more information on that as we develop the calendar and the topics. So do we have any questions here? And if someone could help me with the chat if something comes up.
Yep, so far we just have questions about the background checks, which we'll save until Paul talks more about it. We have a whole segment on that.
And Abigail has her hand up.
Abigail.
Very sorry. I should put it in the chat, but I have been getting like so much information and I'm a little bit confused and overwhelmed. I'm going to be honest. Now I know that that is not anyone's fault. That's just because we're in this process and we're moving. But I can't remember receiving something that explained to me about how I could go take the background check. And so I wanted to know, was that embedded in some like, you know, a plethora, or was that a single item? And if it was just a single item email that you sent out, I don't remember getting it.
Okay, I will make sure that I get it to you today then, and I'll
Okay.
check to see if maybe I had a wrong email for you or for something like that. But thanks for letting me know.
Probably
and I'll
not,
do it
but-
right after today's presentation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been a lot, right? We're bombarding you with information. Please know we feel the same. We're having to learn a bunch of new information. So we empathize with you, and please know we're going to get through this, right? And we're getting a lot of messages about people feeling overwhelmed, and we absolutely understand, but we're here and we're all going to support each other through this, and it's going to be an amazing initiative. So we just need to get over that learning curve hump. Okay, I think Abigail had
that was Abigail's, right?
that was Abigail. I'm sorry, Araceli.
Yes. Hi, I have a question. Thank you. So it was my understanding at our last training that we didn't need to fill out, or didn't have to have the applicant fill out the CLLS AmeriCorps member application. We just had to make sure that they had the information so that later we can put it in the other systems. But then I'm seeing here that we need to forward those applications to Lisa. So could you clear that up for me?
Sure. I believe that application was a template that we sent you to help you devise your own application system for your first applicants. So I have seen that a lot of supervisors have used that. And so what I'm actually needing is just information on your applicant so I can get them started on the process, which is why I'm asking you to email me any sort of application that you might have had them fill out when they applied for the program, or any sort of demographic sheet, just so I can get them started on the process. But that template was not a required template. It was just to help you devise the actual questions that you needed to ask them.
Actually, I'll jump in there because and we'll talk about this a little bit later. Lisa hasn't been sort of part of this, but we do need to keep an AmeriCorps member file, and we'll have certain documents, and that AmeriCorps application, the member application, does need to be in the member file. So you had the flexibility to add questions, to delete some of the questions. Some were mandatory questions, but it was a customizable form, but we will actually need to have that form and keep it in our member files.
So I think a really good practice, if you have the capacity to do this, is to scan the form and send the scan to Lisa. So then that form can be part of the member file. And then you don't have to be cherry picking information that Lisa's asking for. There will be additional information we ask you for because you didn't ask on those forms. Most people didn't ask for social security number and W-4 and all those other things. But the basic information, including whether a member has served before, whether they were dismissed for cause, how many terms have they served, and have they received education awards, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions?
Okay. and I do see people asking for emails that we sent previously. We can do that, but what Paul is going to really stress when he talks about the website is that we would like to encourage you to go to the Literacyworks AmeriCorps website. All of the documents, all of the resources that you need will be there. So that is a really great place for you to always go looking. And I know, filing is sometimes difficult, especially when there's a ton of information coming your way. So everything that you need will be on the Literacyworks AmeriCorps website. So have that be your first place to get information. And if you can't find it, then we will help you with that. So we can certainly, after this meeting, we will send an email with the links to the website and all of these resources so that you have them in one place. But please know that the website is the place to go to. Okay. Any other questions before we move on to a discussion about recruiting members? No? Okay. All right. Nope. All right. So we want to hear from you. So I know that Bev did a great job in July and August about giving some excellent ideas for how to recruit members, and had all kinds of resources available to you on the CLLS website under special projects and AmeriCorps. And then we transferred those resources to the Literacyworks AmeriCorps website as well. But we want to hear from you, right? You guys are in the trenches. Some of you have already done this. We know that we have at least 12 prospective members already, and probably more. Bev, do we have an update from the survey?
I say it's more than 12. I was going to say that. How
More
about
than
that?
12. Okay.
We still are waiting for a survey from about 12 programs. So we need to hear from you. And
well,
I'll put that link back in the chat.
Great. Here's a plug to please do get those surveys back to us, because they really will help us to plan. The deadline is tomorrow. So we would like to hear from you. So I'm going to actually stop sharing. But the questions are, what strategies have you used to recruit your members, or are you using? What successes have you had? And of course, it's always helpful to learn from challenges. And this is a great forum for us to help problem solve some of those challenges. So anybody who has already recruited some prospective members, would you like to share your experiences with us, please? Oh, I think somebody raised.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
My name is Juan Perez. I'm with the San Benito County Free Library. And yesterday we met with our first prospective person, and we think that she's perfect for the fit. We noticed was using community resources in our area. So I know that's very vague because every community is different, but it was figuring out who do we know, who's interested in this, and sort of testing the waters and asking those people, hey, would you be interested? And let me tell you, there was a lot of testing the water, and not a lot of people bit, but people showed interest. We did a job fair, and in the job fair, I labeled it as the exotic option because, all of the wording was kind of confusing to people. So I rephrased it in a way so that people were like, oh, okay, this is a little different than a job, because it isn't. And it was successful in the sense of one person. We have one more person a couple more people that we're going to be trying out for the second position. But so far, talking to our community, getting out there, which I know for some people is a little bit more difficult because getting out of the library, that may be a little harder, or at least finding a way to bring them to you. But if Stephanie has any other things that she could add, because she was in the interview room with me as well, she is welcome to throw it in. Right, Stephanie?
Yes, I think it was just definitely like word of mouth, and we are the outreach team as well. So I think that helped. So we were just spreading the word as much as possible, and we just ended up finding the best candidate for the position.
Terrific. Yeah, it's all that this is where your community networking that you've been investing so much time and effort in really comes into play, right? Because if you have those connections, then that's really helpful. Thank you both for sharing. That's exciting. Thank you. And I think Abigail was first and then Antonio.
I just wanted to comment on the opportunity that we had, which was to kind of reach out to a warm market, people who have already done really cool things for your literacy program. There's a great kind of like a, pool of people that you can appeal to. And also the second, so we did that, and that's how I got my first person. And then the other opportunity was that I'm a member of a group of organizations and human service providers. I'm actually the chair of the group. And so I sent out information to all of the groups so that they could let the word flow to their clientele. And I just think that's so important because I see AmeriCorps as an opportunity to be a continuation of one's education as you're kind of reclaiming literacy and doing the things that you're doing in your lives, that you also have a chance to take those skills that are maybe new to you or improved for you and use them for good. And so that's why I put the word out, and that's how I was able to pique the interest of a couple of people that we really want to see be a part of our LEAP team. So I just wanted to suggest that.
That's terrific. Thank you so much for sharing.
Mhm.
Great. Antonio.
Yeah, hi. Just to quickly share Ventura County Library's experience. It sounds similar to what Juan was saying. We went down the list and advertised it everywhere. A lot of emails had come through Volunteer Match, but nobody had actually filled out an application or gone through a next step. The one person that we did actually nail down for an interview, and it was just awesome. It was just like an hour-long kind of conversation, and all of the interview questions were helpful. Conversation starters, but that person came from a local career fair where I think one used the word exotic choice, or it's like this other category of how you can engage with the library. And we did kind of something similar where I had my own table out from the career fair, and this one person, I remember them chatting with them, and sure enough, they were the one who followed through. So that career fair ended up being the place.
It's so nice when your investment actually pays off, right? So good
Absolutely.
for you. And thank you both for bringing to the forefront that real need to shift our vocabulary, because there are very serious reasons, especially for labor laws, that we want to shift our wording from job and work and payroll and pay to serving and living allowance. And it's so funny because that one slide that had work was actually verbatim from our program officer email. And so it's a hard shift for all of us, but it is one that we need to make and be really mindful of. So great. Who else would like to share? I see there's some sharing going on in the chat box. Let's see. Can somebody who's been monitoring the chat? I've been paying attention to the speakers. Does somebody want to recap the chat box so that I don't?
So Regina had a great point about reaching out to partners at local colleges and universities. They have a community engagement program for homework help for K-8. And boy, what a great idea to share the information with that program manager who's going to know past, present, and potential volunteers who may be looking for a way to make an impact in their community. So, it is a truism in the nonprofit world that people who give more. So don't worry that you feel like you are poaching somebody. Oh, this person already does enough. That's their decision to make, right? Just as you wouldn't say, I don't want to ask this person for a donation because they already donated, right? And in the fundraising world, that's not something that you would do. The same thing is true for volunteering, right? And you guys know this, if you have kids in school, it's like the same people, they do more and more and more, right? It's the same group of people, and many of us are that person. So don't be shy about asking people, but also when you ask people, ask them to spread the word among their friends. They may know someone who has experienced a recent transition. I found that many of my AmeriCorps members were people who were in transitional phases of their life. They just graduated from college. They just left a job. They had a change in family status. They were recently retired. They just moved to town. So just as many of our volunteers come to us because they're in a transitional phase and they're looking for something to give meaning, don't ignore that transition point. And so if your community, for example, has a newcomers club or something that welcomes people who just moved into town, that's a good place to look. Not all communities have that, but it can be a really great place to look because those are people who are in that transitional period who are looking for something to give meaning to their lives. People whose kids have just graduated, right? That's an opportunity as well. So sometimes it's hard to think, where do we find those people? Where do we find retirees? But often they are the people paying attention to local media, local neighborhood listservs, stuff like that. So.
Thank you. And has anybody actually recruited a volunteer tutor or a volunteer, the current or previous volunteer?
I see Jamie's comment from Solano County that they have a prospective member who was a student advocate, so it's adult learner on staff, and they recently hosted a new round of tutor training and found a second prospective person through that. So yes, talk about it in your tutor training. Send an email out to all those people on your tutor wait list. Diane, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to say that when I sent it out to all of my tutors, one of the tutors sent in an application. So we'll do an interview for her. And then we have just an amazing young college student who's been volunteering with family literacy for the past, 2 years? And she's applied for that quarter-time position, and it really works for her because right now she's in school doing an education degree, and all of her work is on Zoom. And so we're going to be able to give her actual contact with children and families. So that was a win-win.
And that's what we hope they're all going to be. You know, we hope that this is mutually beneficial. So we certainly want the members to build capacity in your programs, but we're also building capacity in the members. So, and I know that Sabrina and Regina, you were nodding and waving. Do you want to share how did that work in your program, Regina? Oh, I think you're still muted. Oh, microphone isn't working. Darn it. Okay. So maybe you typed some good stuff. Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't know that. Sabrina, is your microphone working? Could you?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. I can't have my camera on right now. Yes, both of my AmeriCorps have a full-time and a part-time, and they're both tutors. So the full-time has been really heavily involved for a couple years. She helps lead a weekly group discussion, book group. And so I just reached out to her knowing that she wanted to get more involved and that she's really interested in the work that we're going to be having the AmeriCorps do. So she was on board right away and she's going to be a perfect fit. My part-time was a newer tutor, just a couple months, gave me a call asking how she could become more involved. She was really interested. She had time and specifically stated that she had looked for part-time work and realized she'd rather spend that time giving back and wanted to know what she could do to get more involved. So it just really aligned very beautifully for me.
That is lovely. And so rather than sort of broadcasting a message to your tutors, you kind of singled them out, or they singled you out. And that's a terrific strategy. Great. Thank you. And Cassandra, I'm going to put you on the spot because you shared with me some of your great recruiting materials. Do you want to talk about some of the social media and websites that you used?
I don't feel like I did that much.
You did well, but we haven't heard it yet, at least maybe in the chat box, but not in the, what avenues did you use? I know.
I just emailed all of our tutors, but I don't know, I got one tutor applicant from that, and that was at the very beginning of when I started doing this. And when I thought I was even more crammed for time, so I haven't actually updated them. And that tutor is like, I don't know, I'm not certain about having this tutor be one of our people.
Maybe it's a good fit, right?
So,
but didn't
and then
go ahead.
Let's see. But one of the national referrals is a pretty good candidate, I think. And we had one other good person from, I think that came through Volunteer Match. But she just like withdrew her application the other day, and I was super bummed because I thought she would have been good for family literacy, which we need help with. So I don't know. And then
did you do Craigslist or
No.
Idealist or anything?
No, one of my staff just brought up Idealist like yesterday, and I was like, oh, yeah, that might be a good idea.
Okay.
And now that some of these the start date is extended, that is helpful.
I just wanted to chime in really quick. I'm not sure if you're remembering me, but I did Craigslist, I did Facebook.
Yes, thank you. I was like, I know there's somebody else.
I did Indeed, and that's
thank you.
Literally where all of our applicants are coming from is from Indeed. I will say that I wish that like the minimum education was like a bachelor's, just because the quality of work that we actually need these AmeriCorps members to do, like the assessments or the intake or an e-newsletter for family literacy, all of these things require somebody to be a little bit tech savvy. And a lot of the people that have been applying only have a high school diploma and are not so tech savvy. And so we're doing another round of interviews. And I think it'll just, I'm looking for somebody who's like just graduated college, or maybe the last semester of college, like Bev had said, like in a transition period.
I literally, I got my best member ever. I like just asked a friend in the English department at UC near me. I'm like, could you just post this in the office? Like, because UC has all sorts of rules about what you can post on campus and not, or you just put it in your classroom. And I got this great graduate. Nancy, I do want to say about the minimum requirements, those are the minimum, but you can set your standards differently. If you want a bachelor's, one of the reasons we set that, and we also waived the high school requirement, is so that we can engage adult learners on staff, right? Most of whom are not going to have a bachelor's degree, but you can set that minimum requirement, or you can say preferred, bachelor's degree preferred, because the work will entail this. Sometimes you have excellent, I just hired someone for a position who does not have a bachelor's degree, who works in one of your libraries, but has incredible qualifications. So, you might want to put it in terms of qualifications, but we've just provided you the minimum required by AmeriCorps. And even we can waive that high school diploma thing, but if you want more, go for it. You just tweak your description, and particularly to include the skills.
I'm going to do that, Bev. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And actually, Nancy, can you just tell us, did Craigslist, they charge for job listings, right? But not for volunteer postings? Is that
exactly correct? So I made it a volunteer posting. That's exactly what I did.
And I would say some of you do have your governing body, your library, your city or county, who have Craigslist accounts, and they don't mind, paying an extra $10 a month for your listing or whatever it is, because they're already posting a bunch of stuff. So it's always smart. You let people in HR know this isn't a job, but it is an AmeriCorps position. Many of them will be familiar with it and say, are there any things we could take advantage for my HR department actually put it out there in their job ad when they still ran ads in the newspaper. This was a while ago. And I think my library had a Craigslist account, and they were like, sure, do it. So it's always worth asking. You might hear no, but you might as well have somebody else say no to you than say no to ourselves. So Shanti asked, what are learners being recruited as AmeriCorps members being assigned to do? a lot of those learner leader functions. So they could be leading a book club, they could be leading a learner leadership. We do want them to receive training as tutors and to receive training on assessment, but they could be the people who are the warm welcome, or the people who check in with learners. If that person is not comfortable tutoring, they may be comfortable tutoring in some particular circumstances, for sure. So, and they may be the translator. But Shanti, there is a learner leadership element, which is an optional performance goal. And we would hope that any adult learners who were recruited would participate in learner leadership and might help get some learner leadership activities off the ground.
Yeah, facilitating or participating in learner orientations, trainings, all kinds of things. And is anybody here, have you recruited adult learners? Or are you thinking of, are you trying to as your members? Oh,
Hey,
good, Regina, maybe Regina can type her answer. So that's great.
And I know, and also Jamie in Solano County.
Oh, Jamie, sorry.
That they had a student advocate. And
oh, good. Yeah, you know, when I first came to California, I didn't know that there was such a thing as programs that didn't have learner advocates on staff. That seemed like a very strange thing to me because it was such an important part of my program. And we certainly had them in Reed, Santa Clara, and I believe they still do. And so this is the perfect opportunity if you've never had a learner on staff to do that. I would highly encourage. I cannot tell you the benefits and the value that adult learners have provided the programs that I've worked in. Yes. Shanti says they do have a learner advocate. So maybe, Shanti, I wonder if for you, the struggle is what would an adult learner member do so that person isn't supplanting or or because if your learner advocate is already doing a lot of these things, then your member could not do those same things, right? They can't duplicate services. So Bev, do you have ideas?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it would depend on the position description for your learner advocate. There isn't one statewide, and so we'd be happy to work with you one-on-one on that, for sure. It's not that they couldn't do the same things and make the program grow, but they can't supplant that person. There are many things that we all share in, for example, special events. Because your learner advocate may work on special events, it doesn't mean the AmeriCorps member can't. So, but we're happy to develop that with you one-on-one. It's a good question.
Yeah, if there's any fuzziness about supplanting or duplicating services, please just let us know. We can talk that through and brainstorm, problem solve with you. So would anybody else like to share? So we've had some strategies, we've had some successes. Would anybody want to share the challenges that you've experienced in trying to recruit members?
And we know there have been some.
Absolutely.
We've all been through it.
We know you have not had a lot of time, certainly. Regina says, we have an adult learner who previously was an instructional aide and was interested in our literacy programs to improve her fluency and comprehension. However, she is tech savvy and is already an involved parent volunteer at her children's school. I believe that she would be a wonderful learner advocate for our current learners and be able to participate in book club to draw our other learners. You know, I love that idea. My learners are teaching me technology all the time. They are so much better at that. You know, they were teaching me WhatsApp the other day. And so thank you for bringing that up, because quite often we think of the deficits, right, that adult learners have rather than the skills and assets that they can bring. Thank you, Regina. That's great. Okay. Ooh, so Shay says, I have some learners who would be great, but they're not citizens. Are they legal residents, or do you know their documentation status, Shay? Because that is a requirement. You must have permanent residence status. They have a green card, then that, my understanding is that should be fine, right, Bev? If they have a green card, that
Yes.
should be a legal permanent resident.
Yeah.
So, okay. Oh, great. Mickey. So yeah, Shay, talk to us if you have any questions about that. But yeah, let's talk about that, and we can give you the precise language, but talk with us. And Mickey says, we first reached out to our past tutors from the past 2 years and received interest and selected a candidate from this pool that I already had in mind would be perfect, which is great as they are familiar with our program. Added bonus. We then also gained interest through word of mouth from our library staffs, letting our patrons know we are recruiting, and received a perfect applicant in that transitional stage after college with a major in education. Wow, that's fantastic. And thank you, Mickey, because I don't think anybody else said make use of your library team, right? And post things there. Yeah, and you know, that is a wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Myrna.
Hi, sorry. I didn't unmute myself. I just want to find out, because you were talking about the green card. What about Daca students? Currently?
No, unfortunately, the requirements or the eligibility is that Daca folks are only eligible to be VISTA volunteers for AmeriCorps programs, not, they're not.
Yeah, they're only, there's a California College Corps, and Dreamers or DACA recipients can qualify for that, but not for AmeriCorps State and National. So.
Okay, we haven't had that come across. I just want to know, just in case we do.
Great question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we're about at time for this segment. So would anybody like any last minute? Nobody really talked about challenges. Too many. Okay. Okay. Well, again, we are very eager to help you. If you have challenges, you know, let us know. We can try to help. We can try to connect you with somebody who might have some ideas for you. So hopefully having a little more time and knowing that there's some flexibility in the dates by which you need to onboard your members, then hopefully that's helpful for you. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and take a 5-minute break? Oh, let's see, I'm sorry. Jamie says main challenge, keeping up with requirements, more info coming out and doing all the things needed. Right, I know you're so busy. You're so busy just trying to get yourself on board with this initiative. Yeah, let's see. So the paperwork, yeah, we're having a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of information to sift through and to know how do I actually onboard these members. So we understand, we do understand. So all right, why don't we go ahead and take a 5-minute break? Let's come back at 11:20. And we will we'll talk about some essential information for onboarding your members at that time. Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. We look forward to getting getting you started through here. And then after these next sections, we will be taking a lunch break, but let's go to some essential information for onboarding members. So the first thing I want to talk about the local contributions. The very first thing, you all know this, that for a full-time member, regardless of whether they start in October or start in December, the local contribution is $5,000. For halftime, it's $2,000. For quarter time, it's $1,000. Those checks go to Paul Heavenridge at Literacyworks. He is happy to send you an invoice for them. And here's a reminder that for sites, if you already received CLLS ESL funding, you can apply for supplemental funding to pay these contributions. If you are not a CLLS ESL program, but you want to suddenly become one, talk to me about it. The window is small, but you can still do it. Please be aware that your local contribution, even if it comes from your ESL funding, doesn't mean that the member has to spend all of their time on ESL services, right? That they are doing a whole year's worth of service. Your contribution is only a fraction of their living allowance. So don't worry about folks being limited. They should be doing some ESL services if you're using your ESL money to contribute, but they don't need to be working full-time or all of their hours in ESL services. So I want to talk about travel reimbursements because some of you.
You know what, Biv, it just occurred to me. We had a question the other day. Somebody said, well, you know, the amount of time that our literacy program staff are investing in supervising this, can that count towards our local contribution?
So yes, in fact, it does. We counted on this a year ago, over a year ago when we wrote this grant, we counted on that. We still have a question out there about whether we have to track this or not, but for now, don't worry about it. Your time is being considered as an in-kind contribution to the award, as is my time, right? I'm not getting extra money. The state's not getting extra money to pay me. So know that there are a lot of folks behind the scenes whose time is being considered as an in-kind contribution. Georgina asks, sorry, I might have missed this, but will our sites receive invoices for our local contribution? Yes, please contact Paul Heavenridge. Paul will be able to get you an invoice. So Paul, you just got a question from Georgina in Lake County.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the question was, can we deduct our time from the $5,000? And so
that was the question,
right? I'm sorry,
no.
I misstated it. So the local
no, you can't. It's $5,000 cold hard cash. So
and that goes to pay the member's living allowance. So that's why it needs to be cash.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's one of the many ways that we have to balance this incredibly complicated budget, very, very complex budget. Okay, so member travel reimbursement. Some of you who have asked about this. Of course, just as for people who are coming to work, we don't reimburse members for their travel to get to their job site. But if in the course of their service, they need to go to some far-flung sites or they're going to a training that involves some travel, there are some limited funds involved. Set aside for travel reimbursements, and please talk to Kathy about that. So those will be handled, the reimbursements will be handled through Pacific Library Partnership. Please continue to ask us questions because we know that many of those questions are specific to your site. So the next slide is about full-time member benefits. This only applies to full-time members, people who are serving the full 1,700 hours. Please let us know as soon as possible if any of your full-time members are interested in this. I had a lot of full-time members and many of them were not interested in it for whatever reason. They were on Medicare or they were on a family plan. But if they are interested in healthcare coverage, please let us know as soon as possible. We will work to make that healthcare coverage available for full-time members only. It is something that is pledged to full-time AmeriCorps members. They may also qualify for childcare support. And in this case, it's qualification. Healthcare is available for everyone. Childcare is only available to those people who qualify. There are a variety of, there's criteria for this. It's not just anybody, but it's people who meet certain income criteria. And so you want to talk to Kathy about that. And it's a separate trust within AmeriCorps. It's not part of our regular AmeriCorps funding stream. They would apply to a separate program. But if you do have a full-time member interested in healthcare coverage or investigating whether they qualify for child care support and it's subsidized child care support, please contact Kathy directly. A comment about unemployment insurance. Members are not covered by unemployment insurance. The U.S. Department of Labor ruled that federal unemployment compensation law does not require coverage for members because there's no employer-employee relationship. And California labor law also states that AmeriCorps members are not eligible for unemployment as they are not employees. So at the end of their term of service, or if they leave, they are not eligible for unemployment based on the claim that being an AmeriCorps member was an employee relationship, because it's not. Okay. Okay, so program design and accountability. So this is the way we worked it out, and I know that you may have some questions about how adult learners on staff may fulfill this, but there is a way that it can work. Members have to participate in these activities. They don't have to participate in them all the time, but they should be trained to do this. One is assessing learners. One is tutoring learners. And then as a result from that, collecting hours of tutoring, but also collecting roles and goals data, which is a fundamental program practice for CLLS programs. And they also are required to engage in training and professional development opportunities up to 20% of their hours, not more than 20% of their hours, but up to 20% of their hours. Getting training is a fundamental part of AmeriCorps. It's not just getting things done, but it's learning stuff. So maybe you can move on to new interests, new careers, a lot of other stuff. Next slide. Members may, not must, but may also participate in the following activities. Learner leadership. And this is a great opportunity to develop a learner leadership or learner discussion, learner book club, all kinds of programs in your library. But they don't have to. They may do this. They may participate in community outreach. I think this is going to be a fundamental part for a lot of you, but AmeriCorps members may not necessarily be doing that. I can think of one member who might be serving in a youth correctional facility or correctional facility, and maybe outreach is not a part of their member hours. Learner recruitment, also a big part of it. Learner recruitment and volunteer tutor recruitment and training. We do want to see members participate in this, and because it's a fundamental part about learning about CLLS programs. And if your program involves family literacy, event planning, and facilitation, then members may participate. So may participate in family literacy, outreach, and learner leadership. Kathy, I'm going to come back and revisit these. We will continue to talk about this. But let's move on to I think we have the next slide. One more. Is this you, Kathy?
This is me, but
okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Bev. And just, does anybody have any questions before we move on to that? Okay. All right. So as supervisors, and again, please look in your site agreement with Literacyworks. There are very explicit distinctions made between what a site supervisor's role and responsibilities are and what a member supervisor's role are. But so we're going to be talking about site supervisors and member supervisors when we talk about supervisors today. So what are the expectations for you as supervisors of members? Well, we want this to be a pleasant experience for members. So we want you to provide a safe, okay, that is a requirement for AmeriCorps. You must not ask your members to do anything that is unsafe for them to do. We want you to welcome them. We want you to be helpful to them. We want you to be sure to orient them to not only your literacy program, but your entire library, so that they feel like they're a part of the library team and community, that they're knowledgeable about the library and what the services that your library provides, and also to your community partners and your community organizations and your community in general. Many of you will be having members who are local and who know your community, but some of you, especially those who might have applicants through the AmeriCorps portal, maybe getting members who aren't familiar with your community. So that's especially important. And then you want to make sure that you are asking your members to participate in meaningful activities that build capacity for your program and the member. This is not a program to have members be your gopher or to do the grunt work or the work that nobody else wants to do in your program. And so think about, just be very intentional and thoughtful when you're designing what activities you'll engage the member in. And are these something that are interesting, that will help the members reach their potentials as human beings and as AmeriCorps members, and perhaps provide them with a stepping stone. We heard in July and August during Bev's webinars from people who had been AmeriCorps members, and they went on to be library directors and literacy directors and go on to do incredible things. So you are helping them do that, and you're your mentor. You are introducing them to opportunities. Also, there are supervisory expectations. And so we do expect that you'll check in with the member and talk about, how are they doing? Are they meeting expectations? Are they falling short perhaps in some ways? Are they making good progress? Or do they need to ramp up a little bit? So those check-ins are important for all of us as team members working in the same program. And so you want to make sure that those happen. I know everybody gets busy, but they do need to happen. You will also be doing formal evaluations of members at 6 months and 12 months, and AmeriCorps will provide that form. Also, we know that conflict happens, right? We're human beings and not everybody gets along. Misunderstandings happen, conflicts happen. Sometimes people don't quite understand what the standards of conduct are, although we're going to be very clear in this segment of the presentation what those are, and we'll certainly cover that in the member orientation. But if there are any conflicts, then your responsibility is to help resolve those and to help smooth things over to regain equilibrium. And Bev will be talking about grievance processes later today. And then it's certainly your responsibility to provide reasonable accommodations for members if necessary to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So there is information about that in the member service agreement. And also Bev found this great self-paced modular training that we can send you, and we will probably have a training about that as well, specialized training. Let's see. Okay, the question is about an invoice. Whoop. Okay, sorry. All right. So what questions do you have at this point? Okay. All right. Looks like Cassandra has, okay. All right. Paul, do you want to answer Cassandra's question about an invoice and how do you actually pay your local contribution?
Well, once I know what your member, what level you have. So people are asking for invoices, but not telling me if they have a full-time, quarter-time, half-time person. So I don't know what to invoice. So if you would send me an email requesting an invoice with that information, and then I can send you back an invoice. So I'll need any information on the library, who I should direct it to, and of course what members you're going to have, and then I can invoice for that amount. And I'd be happy to email one back to you ASAP.
And then they just write a check. to
Oh, I'm
Literacy
sorry.
Works?
Yeah, they write a check to Literacyworks. All that information is on the invoice, and send it to Literacyworks in care of me, and that's it.
And the address is on the invoice as
The
well.
address is on the invoice. Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Great. And I know that Bev has been in communication with some folks because there are more slots available. And so you will want to make sure that if you're requesting an invoice or making your payment of your local contribution, that it is for your final decision for how many members you are going to be hosting and what type of members they are. Okay. Okay. Abigail.
Thank you. Oh, you're so good at accepting our questions. And
Well, that's
awesome.
why we're here.
Right. Okay. But you know what I'm confused about is that I submitted a request, for monies through the ESL fund so that we could have the money to pay for this. Now, so that's the only thing I've done so far now, but you're talking about an invoice. So could you explain how do you go from one phase to the next? This is the first thing that I've done. And the only thing I've done so far in this respect is to have turned in the budget change request, the BCR, I guess that's it. So what's next?
So those funds that come from the state, what you do with them, that's the next step. That's a disposition. You're not paying them back to the state. You're actually paying them to Literacyworks. And those funds, Literacyworks will be handling the member living allowance. It's actually really good for people to know that your local contribution is starting off the living allowance for your members. We don't have this huge pool of $1 million to pay members. You need to start that off. So it's important that invoices get paid right away. You're not paying the full amount of the living allowance, but it's a help. Paul, go ahead.
I say, well, I want to try to clear that up too. I mean, it is going as part of the literacy, the living allowance, but you are not, it isn't part of payroll. So I've had some questions from some libraries saying, well, if I'm contributing this, it's going to living allowance. So I'm actually paying the individual. And that sets off a whole different way. They have to do the site agreement, and it gets the city manager involved because it becomes a payroll issue. Well, it is not a payroll issue. It's a contribution. The way I like to look at it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bev, I've been telling people that this is like if you have a grant, you have an in-kind part of a grant a lot of times where you're contributing in kind. And that's what this is. So it isn't, this is not payroll. So you're not paying your individual member.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but my question.
Clarification. Yeah.
Thank you. So my question is that, all right, now that I've done that phase, are you going to give me an invoice that I need so I can, give that to my finance department? Is that how that's working?
Yeah. So Abigail, if you send me a request for an invoice and telling me how many members you're going to have, if 2 full-time, quarter time, and then I know how much to invoice you for. Okay.
All right. So now,
I'll send that right back to you before you.
Now the question is,
Mhm.
then the next question is for me is that how do I send you that request? Wasn't that in the application process that we engaged in?
I can give Paul that information, but if you've had any changes, Abigail, so that would be good. Paul, I'd be happy to give you that information. I'm glad we're having this discussion. But absolutely. But some of you have had changes and have stepped forward and requested invoices.
And it would help.
Go ahead.
It would help my accounting if you actually requested. So everybody has my email address, I think, by now. If not, it'll be on the. Kathy usually CCs me if she sends you an email, and it's pheaven@literacyworks.org. And if you could send me the request, then I can keep a tabulation of who's, what invoice. I'm keeping files on all the libraries, so I know I've sent you an invoice. Some libraries have not requested that and already sent me the checks. So I'm trying to keep a running tab. So it would help me if you actually sent me the request for the invoice with the information on the members.
So I think maybe Abigail's question is about timing, and we're talking about like two separate pools of money. So I think some of you have the capacity. You have larger libraries, perhaps larger budgets. You have a library foundation or a general operating expense that if you have not yet received your CLLS funding, you can actually, somebody can float you that money so that you have that money right now to pay that local contribution. Others of you are saying, I don't have that money, right? I haven't received my CLLS funding yet. And especially if I'm now asking for more money, when will that money come? Because I can't pay my local contribution until I have that money. And so is that part of your question, Abigail? Is like, how do I, if I don't, I just sent in my request for more CLLS funding, I haven't gotten it yet. So how am I supposed to then pay this local contribution? Is that part of your?
Yes, that is. And also the other part of it is how I can get the invoice for the amount of money that I'm expected to send, because I'm not sure. I'm in all of the stuff that I've gotten. I'm just not clear on. I hear Mr. Paul saying that we absolutely need to send a request into him for an invoice. And in my process of things that I filled out already, I've not seen where I was instructed to send him such a request.
Yeah, thank you. And so every library is different. And so we're dealing with this on a case-by-case basis. Some libraries don't need an invoice. Some libraries can just cut a check. Some libraries can just pay Paul, or not Paul, Literacyworks with no invoice. Other libraries say, we can't issue payment without an invoice. We need
that would certainly be our case.
Yeah.
So I have to have an invoice.
Yeah. Paul is not sending everybody invoices from Literacyworks. We're not doing that. And we probably should have been more explicit about
so then it's a simple email to Paul requesting an invoice so that I can take that to my finance department and also get approval from legal.
On a case-by-case basis. So Paul is, as he said, he's received some checks from libraries who they didn't need to go through the invoice process. So that's fine. So we want to work with you and your library and whatever procedures are particular to your library. So to receive an invoice, you would just email Paul and say, Paul, could you please send my library an invoice for the local contribution? We have 2 half-time staff. And so you need to invoice us for what, $6,000? Is that correct? And then, and I had something else to say about that. And
I just got four people on the Zoom here, 4 libraries sending me the request for an invoice.
So I want to address one thing which was said about grants. So when you apply for this, you're not participant libraries. This is not a grant program. So for the 30 libraries on this call, you're not a grantee, right? The grantee is actually a Pacific Library Partnership. So sometimes we talk about it as a grant. This is actually a participation opportunity, right? So much like Career Online High School, you actually have to pay to participate in this opportunity and you get things in return. For AmeriCorps, you are opting to participate in this opportunity. You do have to pay a cash match, but it's not a grant. You're participating in an opportunity. I do want to clarify one thing though, Abigail, and this might really help. To help you guys on the CLLS front, when it comes time next year to do your final reporting, even though it's not going to show up in your books for your city as contract staff. You can put your AmeriCorps members in there as contract staff because it's reflecting time that's being served by non-volunteers, but you don't have to. If you want to account for that account for the contribution for each member in operations, that's fine. You would just explain it in the text. So I know it's a little confusing. Don't worry about that. It'll come in all, we'll talk about it all a year from now, but just be aware when you're thinking about this program, don't think of it and you don't want to present it to your city as, hey, we've applied for this grant. It's not, it's a participation opportunity. So, and I hope that.
Yeah,
That's
and then
very clear. Paul, could you say your email one more time?
I'll put it in the chat.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. Great, thanks. That's clear.
He have it at literacyworks.org, but it'll be in the chat.
So the other thing is that obviously we're past September 30th, right? And not everybody has paid their local contribution because you don't know how many members you're having. And so that is something that, again, you would email Paul and you would negotiate with him a later payment date. Now, please remember that Literacyworks does not have a lot of money, right? And if your members start serving, they need to receive their living allowance. And so he has limited capacity to front that living allowance to your members. So it would really be helpful for those of you who do have the local contribution to contribute now or soon. That would be very, very helpful. So it looks like we're getting some questions about the payment and invoicing. So Regina says, Rebecca, I'm sorry, if we have one applicant ready to go, but we're still searching for a second applicant, do we ask for an invoice for just the one or ask for both?
You know, that's a great question. If you are confident you're getting the second, you're interviewing, ask for both. But if you're afraid that you're not going to fill that second slot, do talk to me, Kathy, and Paul, and we'll work it out with you. So instead of us making one blanket decision where people hear what they want to hear and take it away, let's make sure we deal with individual cases on an individual basis. So if you send a message to Paul, make sure that you CC me and Kathy, and we can talk about it all together. How's that?
Okay, so we have, if the information for both situations could be sent to everyone, that might have been helpful instead of piecemeal. Absolutely, Cassandra, I could not agree with you more. And part of what the challenge for everybody has been is that we are learning just as you're learning. And so sometimes as soon as we got information, we passed it along to you. We have not had all the information up front. And so that's why this has been a very challenging onboarding situation for everybody, because California Volunteers AmeriCorps didn't have answers. We didn't have answers. We didn't have information. And so we've been doing the best that we can, but we totally understand that it's caused some confusion. And so we own that, and all we can do is apologize and help and offer that we will absolutely work with you to try to help you through this confusion. The local contribution is a one-time payment, correct? Yes, it is per year. So we are hoping to have this initiative continued in years 2 and 3, and you would then make a new local contribution each of the successive years. Okay. Okay. Is it possible to send an email identifying AmeriCorps members as contract staff? Our city is asking that members have to fill out the city's volunteer intake process. Okay. So, okay. Sounds like case by case basis. Okay. It is a steep learning curve and a group learning experience for all of us. So what we as a project team keep thinking is, once we get over this initial hump, it's going to be smooth sailing, right? So we just all need to be patient, and as we work through this initial rocky road to get where we're going to be. Okay, thank you for the questions are helpful, absolutely helpful, because it encourages us to think this through and to learn as well. So please don't think your questions are unwelcome in any way.
And we can tell you, you are not alone, no matter what your question is.
Absolutely. So, okay, are we ready to move on to the AmeriCorps policies? And as I said, this is a very important part because these are federal funds, federal dollars, a federal agency that then works with the state agency, California Volunteers, and then works with Literacyworks and CLLS and the Pacific Library Partnership. And so there are levels of bureaucracy and of accountability. And so we want to make sure that everybody understands what it is that we all need to be doing and that we're all responsible for. And so this part of the presentation is a little dull, and I apologize for that, but it's very important. So what is required for your member files? What do you need to submit to us? You and your members need to submit to us. We talked about this briefly before. The signed, official, approved AmeriCorps member application. And so that is available on both the Literacyworks AmeriCorps website and the CLLS Special Projects website. We really are trying to drive you towards the Literacyworks AmeriCorps website. Also, the signed, official, approved member service agreement. And that is a very long document. I think it's 27 pages long. It is very comprehensive. We're going to take a look in depth at a lot of those pieces because of their importance. We also need proof of your members' age, education, citizenship or residency, and previous AmeriCorps state and national experience. There is a 4-term limit. If a member has already served 4 terms in any AmeriCorps program, they are ineligible. Also, if they have been released, I may not be using the vocabulary correctly, and Bev can correct me, but if there has been cause for dismissal from AmeriCorps, then they also need to disclose that to you. And then, of course, the background checks that Paul will talk more about later in the presentation. So let's just very briefly look at this application, the member application. So you're all going to have different ones. So this, I just put it up here so that you know, oh, right, that's that form, because I know you've been sent a lot of different forms. So you can customize this, but please do not delete any of the questions because they are there as an AmeriCorps requirement. So for the eligibility, the citizenship eligibility is one example. So as Lisa said, once you have that AmeriCorps member application completed and signed, please scan it or email a copy to Lisa so that she can get that member started in their onboarding process. Now, the AmeriCorps member service agreement is that really long document that looks like this, okay? We have had several iterations of this document. So please be sure, for some reason, when we first got copies of this agreement from California Volunteers AmeriCorps, they gave us a member service agreement and a position description, a member position description as two separate documents. It turns out we now have guidance from our program officer that those documents need to be one. They need that member position description needs to be embedded in the member service agreement as part of it. So I think they sent it separately so that you could use it for recruitment purposes, separate, so that you could tell people what you expected them to be doing in their service year. But as a required document that goes into your members file, they need to be joined. Now, when some folks tried to combine those documents, it totally messed them up. And so we have, Paul was able to combine the documents in the format that they are supposed to be in. So if you go to the Literacyworks AmeriCorps website, the member service agreement that is there is the one that is the official one that has the member position description embedded. So please do use that one. Okay, do we have anything in the chat that needs to, okay, nope. All right. So we are going to be, Bev and I went through the member service agreement page by page, and we cut and pasted. We took out the very important policies that we are required to review with you. We are not, some of them are really dense and really long, and we will not be going word for word over them, but we need you to know that this is in your member service agreement. This is what your member and you are signing. And so you do need to be very aware of all of this information. So some AmeriCorps programs are able to have their members fundraise. We are not. We do not have a fundraising performance measure. And so it is not okay for CLLS AmeriCorps programs to engage in any kind of fundraising activities for your programs. We know that some of you do have wonderful programs. You depend on your fundraising events. This is not something that your members can participate in. And so here are some examples. And actually, number one, Bev, this is something that Bev and I had a discussion this morning, because there was a distinction between receiving items and asking for money. So can we talk about number one, seeking donation of books?
Yeah, Kathy, I think a better example is seeking funding for books for companies. You know, if you answer the phone and somebody's offering you books, it's not the AmeriCorps job to handle that donation. You would want to pass that off to staff for a variety of reasons for it. But it's not an AmeriCorps job to go out there and pound the pavement looking for donations of any sort, whether they are cash or material.
So you cannot ask your members to write grant proposals. You can't ask them to go out to community members or companies to seek funding for supplies and equipment. You cannot ask them to engage in anything that is requesting financial resources from anyone in your community. Also, you can't ask AmeriCorps alumni who you think might want to support your program. Not okay to ask other AmeriCorps past or present folks for money to support your program. And you certainly can't try to raise money for living allowances. And if you are applying for any other AmeriCorps programs or to any federal agencies, you cannot involve your AmeriCorps members in that grant application. Okay. What page is that found on?
I got it. It's on, I think it's on pages 8 and 9. If the copy I'm looking at is correct.
Yeah, that's the thing, that once Paul embedded the member position description, that all the paging went weird.
So I would just say this, just search for the word. That's what I did. So I looked for fundraising, and so if you have any questions about any of this stuff, open the document and search for the keyword that you're looking for.
Thank you, Bev. So rules of conduct for members, you need to be aware of them. They certainly need to be aware of them. Again, we'll be covering this in the member orientation, but all of this is explicitly stated in the member service agreement. Sometimes it's called standards of conduct. Sometimes it's called rules of conduct. So any time that the member is serving, is acting as an AmeriCorps member, they must comply with your rules and standards that you ask of any other team member. Okay, so we have generalized rules of conduct, but there's certainly we know that each of you and your libraries or your programs have other standards. Bev, what were some example you were giving?
Example might be a dress code. For example, if your dress code prohibits strapless clothing or open-toed shoes or open-back shoes for safety reasons, and I know some libraries have this, sometimes it's a discussion and negotiation with your union. Generally, you want your members to follow the same standard. Your tutors can generally wear whatever they want, right? They can wear open-toed shoes, but if it's prohibited in your library for staff members, you want to have the same standard for AmeriCorps members, even though they are not employees. It's usually a safety standard. It's often, sometimes it's just for classifications of people who are shelving books or handling book carts, but whatever it is, you have to follow a standard of behavior. So, you know, you obviously, you can't engage in conflict or swear at library patrons. Whatever it is the standard of rules and standard of your library as the host agency. Please ask your members to follow those standards.
So the expectation is, of course, that members will be respectful towards everybody, that they will follow directions when you ask them to complete a task. If there's anything that is worrisome, if there are concerns, the members should certainly talk to you as their site supervisor or member supervisor, but they can also contact Paul, okay, or me. So certainly what counts as a violation of any time that you see program, that means the CLLS AmeriCorps program. Okay, so they shouldn't be tardy or absent without approval from you. They should not be using inappropriate language. They certainly, as Bev said, should not be swearing when they are serving in your program. They need to wear appropriate clothing. They can't steal or lie, and they certainly can't do anything that physically or emotionally damages anybody in the community or in the AmeriCorps initiative. Nothing to do with drugs and alcohol. They can't make, use, distribute, offer, do anything with drugs or alcohol while they are performing their services as a member. And if they do this, then you need to notify the CLLS initiative, and there may be criminal arrests or convictions for those infringements. So what happens? What is the disciplinary process? So again, this is all spelled out. It's very, very specific, very detailed. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but we want you to know that this is all spelled out for you. Okay, there are no surprises. We can certainly, hopefully none of this will take place and come into play in your site, but if it does, the information is here. You have us to work with, and we have our California Volunteers AmeriCorps staff to help us as well. So if there's a first offense, then there's a verbal warning. If there's a second offense, there's a written warning. For a third offense, perhaps the member might be suspended for 1 or more days, and they will not receive credit for those service hours that they missed while they're suspended. For the fourth offense, we may decide, the initiative may decide to release the member for cause, and we'll go into greater detail about what constitutes release for cause. So please note, this is in bold, there is no requirement that the CLLS AmeriCorps program follow a prescribed sequence in the imposition of a particular form of disciplinary action. Disciplinary action may skip steps or begin at any point in the progression. So if a member commits a totally egregious act, you're not going to give a verbal warning, right? You're going to escalate that to a higher level of disciplinary action.
Yeah, this is just a suggestion for the steps that you could take. It's not required that you have to take steps 1 through 4.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy.
So if it does get to the severity that you need to think about suspension, what are those infractions that might merit suspension? Certainly, if you're convicted or charged with a violent felony or anything having to do with drugs, and anything having to do with physically or emotionally damaging anyone. Also, this was a little bit surprising to me that this is considered such a serious thing. So let's pay attention to this. Transporting passengers in their own vehicle during the hours they're serving as an AmeriCorps member, unless the passenger is a member of the program, so the initiative. So Beth, let's talk about.
I want to. It doesn't mean that you can't go off the time clock and pick up a friend and go out to lunch and then come back on the time clock, right? It's just like work. But just as we tell our volunteers, don't give rides to learners. Like, don't, that relationship is inappropriate. Our liability insurance doesn't cover you. This is similar.
Okay. And then again, drugs, anything having to do with drugs or alcohol is certainly a serious infraction. And again, criminal arrest, conviction, you cannot steal. I actually don't know the difference between stealing and theft. Is there a legal?
We didn't bring the attorney, but we can.
Sorry, so I'm.
And you'll notice it's not that a member gets suspended for arrest or conviction. It's for failure to notify a program.
Oh gosh, thank you. Yes, thank you. And then any violation of the Drug-Free Workplace Act. So release from term of service. So the member must sign this member service agreement acknowledging that they understand that they may be released from their service for the following reasons. So release for cause means anything other than a compelling personal circumstance. And so we'll talk about that in a minute, but it includes a release for misconduct and if a member decides to leave the program. So AmeriCorps programs must release for cause any participant who is convicted of a felony or the sale or distribution of a controlled substance during a term of service. Anybody who is convicted of a felony for the sale or distribution of controlled substances during their term of services. A participant who is released for cause may not receive any portion of the AmeriCorps Education Award or any other payment from the National Service Trust is the entity that provides the funding for AmeriCorps. An individual who's released for cause has to disclose that fact if they apply to any AmeriCorps program in the future. If they don't disclose that, then they are not eligible for the Education Award, even if they have completed a term of service. And then if an AmeriCorps member is released for cause, they can contest that decision by filing a grievance. And Bev is going to talk about that grievance process. Right. So a member's eligibility for a future term of service in any AmeriCorps program will not be affected by release for cause from a prior term of service so long as the individual received a satisfactory end of term performance review for the period served in the prior term. So this is all really nitty-gritty detailed information, but we want you to know it's in there for you to refer back to. Hopefully you don't need to. And then a term of service from which an individual is released for cause counts as one of the maximum 4 terms of service that an AmeriCorps member can serve unless the member is released for reasons other than misconduct prior to completing 15% of a term of service. This is all information that makes my head swim. You don't have to know and understand it and commit it to memory now. You just need to know that it is there to refer to if you ever need to. Now, a different sort of release is release due to compelling personal circumstances. So the CLLS AmeriCorps initiative may release a member from their term of service for compelling personal circumstances if the member has completed at least 15% of their required hours and demonstrates circumstances beyond their control that prevent them from completing their term of service. So note, they have to have participated in 15% of their hours. So what are compelling personal circumstances? So this is something that they have no control over. So perhaps a disability or a serious illness, or for them or their family member that makes their completion of their term just really difficult or downright impossible. And things like we had a program say, you know, a library say we're not able to participate in this time. Our building has been closed, right? If you are in a fire zone, right, and you have to evacuate, right, the member cannot serve out their term. So those are examples. Release for personal reasons. There are reasons that, again, the corporation, which is AmeriCorps, has for public policy reasons determined. Absolutely, if you have a military service obligation, then you would be released for personal reason. If you are on welfare and you have an opportunity to gain employment, then you can be released for personal reasons. Just taking a job does not count. It needs to be if you're on employment and you're transitioning to a work situation, that's a cause. And then accepting an employment opportunity by a participant serving in a program that includes in its approved objectives or performance measures, the promotion of employment among its participants. Bev, do you have an example of what that might be?
Yeah, so there, I can't think of any AmeriCorps programs right now, but there used to be like Comprehensive Employment and Training Act programs that were designed, or Job Corps, where they were designed for people to participate, to build job skills, to get jobs. So if somebody got a job, you couldn't say, no, you can't take that job. You have to stay in the program. So our program isn't designed that way, but some programs may have been designed that way.
Thank you. Okay. So compelling personal circumstances don't include leaving the program because you got accepted to university or any kind of a school or training program, so that you can just take a job, again, unless you're moving from welfare to a job, or if you're being promoted, and if the member is unhappy with the program. Okay. So as an alternative to releasing a participant, you can, if you determine that there is a compelling personal circumstance, you can just suspend their term of service. And you can do that for up to 2 years or longer if AmeriCorps approves it, to allow the participant to come back and to complete the service either with the same or similar AmeriCorps program at a later time. So a suspension, not of the person, but of the service. All right. Oh, before, this is, yeah. What, do we have any questions that pertain to that part?
So I know Diane Shimoda had a question about driving, and we want to check the answer to that one. And I have worked with AmeriCorps members. I worked with a number of them, some of which were released for personal reasons or had suspended terms. And I'd be happy to talk to you about that experience, and we'll find out the answers for your specific questions. I think we're ready to go on. I just want everyone to know that AmeriCorps is committed to civil rights policies, and they have a civil rights and non-harassment policy. They're committed to treating all people with dignity and respect while building a diverse, equitable, inclusive workplace in which its benefits and opportunities for advancement are accessible to all. AmeriCorps maintains a zero tolerance policy for any unlawful discrimination and harassing conduct towards any employee, intern, or contractor. I'm going to explain a little more, but point you to where in the agreement it goes. So if we get the next slide, Kathy. As a federal agency, they take responsibility for compliance with anti-discrimination laws and regulations enforced by the EEOC on the maintenance of a model EEO program. Building a culture of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility demands the prevention of discrimination and harassment, along with taking swift action when it occurs. There are details on this policy, it's federal policy, and the member agreement document, and we refer you to them. AmeriCorps takes this very, very seriously. Very much an organization that's committed to good practices. So Kathy, is this one me or you?
You.
It is. Okay, so reasonable accommodation policy. Thank you. This is really important. AmeriCorps prohibits any form of discrimination against persons with disabilities in recruitment as well as in service. As a program that is federally funded, we have to comply with the requirements of the ADA and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. Please see Member 25 of the Member Service Agreement. There is a self-paced training module that's available upon request. And again, in my experience, I absolutely worked with AmeriCorps members who needed reasonable accommodations for, in the case I'm thinking about, for a physical disability. And that was really important in our program to create those accommodations. So happy to address those. Next slide. Grievance procedures. This is also outlined in the member service agreement, so I'm going to go over it very briefly. The grievance procedure is to resolve these disputes, not all disputes, right? We all know we're human, we have disputes, but disputes concerning a member suspension, dismissal, evaluation, or service assignment, right? So those are the 4 categories. So the member has to understand that as a participant, they can file a grievance about those 4 categories in accordance with the grievance procedure. Early steps of bringing concerns to you as program staff are outlined in the member issues or complaints process addendum. Next slide. So the first, you have these things. Step 1 could be the preliminary complaint resolution that immediately or within 30 days, ideally within 30 days of the occurrence. You bring that, we seek a resolution. Step 2 is also an alternative dispute resolution that has to be initiated within 45 days of the alleged occurrence and resolved within 30 days that the process began. So the next slide. So the formal grievance filing and hearing, a grievance has to be filed no later than 1 year after the alleged occurrence. So there's 3 levels there. One is the dispute resolution, the very first level, within 30 days. If someone wants to choose an alternative method, it's within 45 days. And if they want to use the formal grievance filing process, they have to have a year. They have a year in which to file that grievance, and then a decision is made within 60 calendar days. So this is all governed by the guidelines California Volunteers provides for us. Okay, so step 4, there's also limits to binding arbitration. You have this all in the agreement, but if it goes to arbitration, this is the window. It has to be held no later than 45 calendar days after the request for arbitration. The decision has to be made within 30 days, and the cost would be divided evenly between parties to the arbitration. The next slide. If a grievance is filed, here's the suspension thing regarding a proposed placement of a participant in a program. So this is only the proposed placement. and somebody wants to file a grievance about it. It's not fair. You're letting everybody else do this work, and because I'm this XYZ person, you're not letting me do it. I protest. I'm filing your grievance about this placement. So don't make the placement until the placement is consistent with the resolution of the grievance. The remedies can include, it maybe we prohibit the placement of a participant depending on the case. But if there is a case where there's a violation of non-duplication and non-displacement requirements we talked about last week, and the employer gets corporation assistance, and that's you guys, they have to reinstate the employee to the position they held, pay lost wages and benefits, reestablish other terms of employment, or add other equitable relief. So this is, if somebody you laid off, then you decide you're not going to call them back, but you're like, you can come back as an AmeriCorps member. Don't do that, right? That's prohibited. And somebody can file a grievance, and here's the steps that would be resolved in that case. And so the next slide. In that case, the corporation may suspend or terminate payments to the grantee, right? And if there's no compliance with arbitration, a lawsuit could be brought. I don't think this is going to happen, but we lay it out there. It's laid out there in the member service agreement, so they understand that there is a process for grievance. There is a process eventually for arbitration if need be, and there are timelines for addressing those grievances. So if somebody does bring a complaint to you about those 4 areas, make sure you contact us, and we'll contact California volunteers, and we'll get the process underway. If the grievance is regarding a proposed placement, participant placement, the placement is not to be made unless it is consistent with the resolution of the grievance. If the grievance alleges fraud or criminal activity, it must be immediately brought to AmeriCorps. So they have an Office of the Inspector General. And there you go. That's all I got for you.
We don't expect you to have internalized all of that information. It really is a requirement for us as part of your supervisor orientation to cover so that we can check a box. And it is very, very important information. And
yeah, it's important for members to know that they have recourse to a grievance procedure. Just as it's important for you guys as employees to know that what you have recourse to in the workplace, whether it is, HR law or your union policies or both of those. So we're laying it out for you. Yeah.
Okay. If there are no questions, Paul is just going to do a recap because we've gotten a little bit farther along in the process, and we have in fact, heard from some folks.
Yeah.
They have some questions.
Yeah, and I'm going to use my slides. So
oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I was in my sharing mode.
That's okay. No problem.
Sharing person. I can't help it.
Hey, you are a sharing person, Kathy. Okay, let me. Okay, so yeah, everybody is right now probably dazed and a little confused, but this is really important. So and probably hungry too. So I want to go through this real quick again. So this is the National Service Criminal History Checks, and so again, these are mistakes when we adjudicate and do the background checks can lead to the CLLS AmeriCorps initiative getting dinged and having to pay back money. So we don't want that to happen. So between, that's why Lisa is checking everything I'm doing, and I'm checking everything Lisa's doing here. So, there's 3 parts of this all, and actually we just said 2 here, but I want to go through that. One is they have to have these background checks, and they have to be 18 and over, and anybody that staff is charging time to the AmeriCorps cost or applying their time to this needs to go through these checks also. And they have to be completed no later than the day before the start of the member orientation, okay? So we have to have that first. So right now, everybody that you're talking to be a member is just an applicant. They're not officially a member yet until these checks are done and we clear them. So I wanted to talk about e-grants a little bit. This is the sequence for e-grants. E-grants is the national database for AmeriCorps. So the first step is Literacyworks will request the applicant's social security number from the site supervisor or the applicant. And what we need is the social security number and the email of the applicant. So we have a secure password protected website, a web page for this to enter the applicant's name and social security number. And Lisa will send you the URL and password for that if she already hasn't done that. The third step is Literacyworks will enroll the member applicant in e-grants, and then the member applicant will receive an email invitation to complete their information from e-grants. They'll follow the instructions to provide the requested information. So it's really important that either you as the site supervisor or the individual applicant go to the website that's, again, it's secure. When you go there, we don't post it. We're going to send you this information. And they enter the password and then they enter their social security number and name. Okay. So that's one part of the step. And what the social security number in e-grants, by the way, does is identifies that person as a citizen or having their green card, or so that passes that test. So the next thing is TrueScreen. And TrueScreen, the steps are Literacyworks will enter site supervisors and applicants' name and email in TrueScreen. So we need that information. And then there'll be an email sent from applicationstation@truescreen.com with the subject background investigation forms requested. And then you're to follow the instructions and use the link to create an account and start your sex offender database check. Okay. And you'll need to upload an image of your government issued ID, typically your driver's license. Okay. When your application is complete, you'll receive a follow-up email with the subject communication regarding your background investigation with a link if you requested copies of the authorization documents. We'll also be able to see that also. Literacyworks will then receive this confirmation from TrueScreen. And when your check is complete, and then we'll let you know if there's any issues. So these instructions, all these instructions are on the Literacyworks AmeriCorps website at literacyworksamericorps.org. Okay, and then what we do with that information is we adjudicate, saying you pass or not pass this, and then we'll put that information into e-grants. Now the other background check is the fill print, and this is where you visit fillprintscns.com and you enter you and your applicant enter your email address under new users sign up, and then you follow the instructions for creating a password and security question, and then click sign up and continue. make sure you enter the field print code that's on the screen here, because that goes to our credit card. So both of these, both TrueScreen and field print has our credit card embedded in there, so you don't have to pay anything. Okay, so enter the contact and demographic information that they ask you to do. And then at the end of the process, you print the confirmation page where you're going to go do your fingerprints, which is locally. Make sure you take it with you to the fingerprint appointment, along with the 2 forms of ID as instructed. And again, these instructions are all on the website. All right. So, okay, so that's what you need to do. And do you have any questions?
Where are these instructions located on the Literacyworks website?
Okay, they are under the, let's see, if you go to, let me get out of stop sharing here.
And actually, Abigail, at the end of today, hopefully we'll have time. Paul
Yeah.
is going to actually go to the website. But yeah, I can't remember if they're under training or
They're under
resources.
I just
resources.
responded there. I typed it in.
Under resources.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Under training. I also sent Abigail an email with the link to that page.
Great.
Excellent.
And there were some questions before. So just to clarify, you do not need an invitation for field screen for your fingerprinting. You just go to the website. For TrueScreen, the background check, you need an invitation. You cannot begin the process until you have received an invitation. Okay, so Lisa needs to know your members' information so that she can start that. And she also needs to know your information so that she can input your information so that that invitation can be sent to you from TrueScreen. Okay.
That's
and
correct, except it's
least-
called field print, not field screen.
Shoot, yeah, field.
Field print's the fingerprints,
It's
you initiate
confusing.
the process, TrueScreen is the background check, and you'll get an email to invite.
Juan asks, besides an ID or driver's license, what could we use for a second? There's a whole list. If you go to the website, it gives you a marriage certificate, a birth certificate,
Credit card.
all of these things. So
It could be a letter from your utility company to your address with your name on it. There's a whole list on your confirmation page.
And Lisa, for the secure website for the Social Security number, did you send the site supervisors that information? Or is that something you're going to send them?
What I do
We're
is when
not
I
putting
get,
it on the website.
no, it's hidden. It's hidden on our website because it's password protected and secure. So what happens is once the site supervisors send me the member names and applications, I email the member a welcome to AmeriCorps, and here are the onboarding instructions. I CC the site supervisor. In that email, it talks about how to access that password protected page. So yes, any site supervisor who has already enrolled a member and is getting the process started will have that information.
Right, and just to reiterate, this will not be under resources. This won't be on the Literacyworks AmeriCorps website. It has to come from Lisa directly.
So you can do the TrueScreen from home. You don't have to go anywhere. With field print, you have to go to a place and you put your zip code in and they show you where places are near you that you can go. Oh, and other people were saying, how long is this process taking? Somebody said what, within 4 days, but what is the expectation for how long? Because this has to be done before your member can start their.
Yeah, I'd give 4 days. It's typically done in a couple days. But but see that going through all the process, getting your fingerprints, getting the FBI checks for the to make sure that for the child abuse check, that typically would take a couple of days. It's not that long, but then we have to adjudicate everyone. So that'll take some more time too. So they're not going to be a member until they pass their e-grants, Social Security check, their true screen, and their field print check. And we adjudicate. Then we say, yes, they're ready to go. They're ready to be a member.
Okay. What other questions before we break for lunch?
And I'll just reiterate one more time, if you have not received an invite with information on how to do the background checks, please email me. I'll put my email in the inbox. Site supervisors are trickling in, so I should have reached out to everybody I've heard from in the last 24 hours. But again, reach out to me if you haven't gotten that invite or if you need it resent again. And I'm putting my email in the inbox right now.
And Bev, did you want to make the announcement about lunch?
No, Kathy, go right ahead. I'm sorry.
We're good. We're good for a half an hour.
I hope so. If people need to take more time, please let us know. Just send us private chat.
Okay, we knew that everybody needed to get or many people needed to get to a 2 o'clock meeting, and that might be eager just to get through this in a timely fashion. And so we scheduled 30 minutes. If that does not work for you, as Bev said, please let us know. So we will see you back at 1:10.
There you go.
All right, everybody, I'm going to share my screen. All right. And I am going to be talking some more about the America Learns Impact Suite. We touched on it, a brief overview of it when we met last time, but specifically today, I'm going to show you how to do your member profile and the timesheets, supervising the timesheets for the AmeriCorps members. You'll also be receiving videos and slide decks on how to do this. So that today will be a nice overview for you. So I've sent everyone that I know of who's a site supervisor or a member supervisor an invitation to America Learns to create a password. I know a lot of you haven't done that yet, I can tell. And so after today's presentation, I'll resend the invitation out to those of you who have not done that yet. This is what the America Learns Impact Suite looks like, the landing page. It says Literacy AmeriCorps up at the top here. It has our logo, and this is where you log in. So the functions of the Impact Suite are, they are going to store the profiles of our members, learners, and supervisors. This is where we're going to collect and report our data for our performance measures. We can generate progress reports and track our CLLS roles and goals. In addition, we will be doing our timesheets here. The members will be filling them out here, and we will be tracking them as staff and supervisors. We can manage member files and do document signing with Sign Now. It will also be our communications portal where we can email each other, and I can text reminders to our members to do their timesheets or their progress reports. It's also a way for you to directly message a member also. And this platform will also encourage some member strategy sharing, where people can post strategies that are working for them in their tutoring and their tasks that they're doing, and share them with other members in the AmeriCorps program. So about profiles. So you supervisors should have received an email invitation to create a password and set up your profile in America Learns. This password, this email is good for only 24 hours. So if you didn't use it in that first 24 hours, you just have to go in and request it again. But after this, I will definitely be sending you another reminder to sign up if you haven't already. Just like you guys are going to be getting profiles, our AmeriCorps members will receive the same after their background checks are all adjudicated and their documents are all signed, and we know they're definitely members and no longer applicants. They'll be invited to the portal too. So here is how you create your password. So when an account has been created for you, which I've done, you'll get an email like this. This is what would have come into your email inbox right here with a link to set up your profile with a password. So you can create the password, this link down here. I would remind you to make a bookmark of the America Learns site, because it will be useful for you and you'll be using it a lot. So any questions about this first part of my presentation? Let me open the chat. Nothing in the chat. I think I'll just move ahead then. So this is about the timesheets. So as we said before, there's 2 living allowance periods for our members. It's from the 1st of the month to the 15th, and then the 16th to the last day of the month. Members will be required to keep track of their hours, and they do need to break them down into roles or activities, including some of the tasks that we told you they'd be doing, like tutoring and assessing learners. They'll also put their national service days down in and designate them as such, as instead of categorizing it as a tutoring day, they would categorize it as a national service day. So there will be other categories in there for the members to choose from. The members will receive text and email reminders to submit their timesheets by the last day of the pay period. They will be due 1 day after the last day of the pay period. That gives us enough time to have them submitted to you, the supervisor, have you approve them or send them back to the member for corrections. And then Paul will then take that information and create the living allowance checks. So once the AmeriCorps member has received this text or email reminder, which is generated by me, you don't have to do that. And then they fill out their timesheet. You will then, as the supervisor, will receive an email message to review and approve the member timesheet. And I'll show you snapshots of this a little bit later on. You can request edits within the platform. You would just mark next to the time, the day that they had worked, and you would say not approved, and you would have a text field where you could put in where you think the correction should be made for them. And just as so you know, as a side note, America Learns is fully compliant with the AmeriCorps agency timesheets regulations. Okay, so here
Lisa,
we're going.
could I interject one thing here?
Oh, of course.
So for the payroll, we're going to do everything direct deposit, and we do have a direct deposit form on our resource under resources in the website. So once your applicant becomes a member officially, that's something they're going to have to get back to me so I can enter them into the payroll for their direct deposit. Okay, so we'll be sending that out, or at least showing you where the link is to that form. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. So these following slides are snapshots from the website that America Learns put together. I've just pulled out the ones I want to show you today, but I will be emailing you this slide deck here. So it's called Timesheet Review for Supervisors. Okay, so how the timesheet flow works is America Learns will send an email notification when a member submits or resubmits a timesheet. Then the supervisor will get that email in their personal email box. They will log into America Learns with the link there. They can look at the timesheet and approve or reject it, and then you can go on with your day. This is made by America Learns, but I think they're trying to tell you that it's going to be an easy process. Okay, so here's what you'll get. You'll get an email that looks like this. Test member 123, which will be the name of your AmeriCorps member, just submitted a timesheet for this date period. This will be addressed to you. Here is the timesheet for you to review. Here is the period. These are the submitted hours, the name of the AmeriCorps member. And you would just use this link right here with the big red arrow to access the timesheet. So what happens is you will log in. And this is what your homepage will look like after you've logged in. This action center is going to be your best friend up here under mission control. This is where you're going to be told about actionable items that you will be needing to complete, sign, approve, etc. So under there, you are going to see that you have an actionable item right here to review a timesheet. To access the timesheet awaiting your approval, you use the Go To right here, drop down menu and select Screen Pending Timesheets. Then you click on any of the reporters. America Learns refers to your members as reporters. You would click on the member or reporter that has submitted their timesheet for you to approve, and then that will open in a new tab. This is what your tab will look like. Here's the timesheet. You'll see a day-by-day breakdown of that member's time for the 2-week period. So here's Monday, September 5th. Here's the site that they're working at. Time in, they reported 8. Time out, they reported 4. Then for direct service that they've done, they've recorded that they did 3.5 hours of tutoring, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They didn't do any national service days. And we have an other category, which you can fill in if there's not a category for the type of work that they did. They also have a place to record training that they've done. And then there is a place where they record their lunch and their breaks, and that shows them how much they're not receiving credit for. And they took a half-hour lunch on that day. And so they're receiving credit for 7.5 hours. And then you'll see down here that there's another listing right after it. So it'll be in a long format, all the days for you to review. There is a link up in the right here if you want to email or text your member also. Okay, so at the end of the whole timesheet, which you'll scroll through, you will see a summary of the totals for this period right here. So in this 2-week period, this AmeriCorps member / reporter reports 58.5 hours of direct service broken down into here, and 9 hours of training for a total of 67.5 hours. And here is the audit trail right here. This is when they submitted to you their timesheet. Okay, so let's say you think everything looks just fine on that timesheet. You have this action, you can approve this timesheet. All the information is accurate. You will electronic signature with your full name. I would type in here Lisa Thompson, and then I would click submit. Now, if I did not like the timesheet and I needed to ask for corrections on it, I could reject it. So then I would have clicked the do not approve button, which is right here. I do not approve this timesheet for the following reasons. And you would write in here what they are. Then you can enter suggested corrections for the members. So there it is. I do not approve this timesheet for the following reasons. And then you would free text what the reason is. John, your background check has not come in yet. Da, 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 da. You could put anything in there that you would want them to address and look at. And then again, you would sign it with your name right down here. Just type it in and then click submit. And then an email will go to your members' personal email inbox, and they will be able to review this. And then they would also go back in, make the correction and resubmit. The process would start all over again with you getting another email reminder that they're ready for that. You can now review the corrected timesheet and then approve it. So in our action center, which I showed you on the first page, here are some other features that you can do around timesheets. So you can always use this back button to get around. There's sometimes a little bit of glitchiness on the America Learns platform, I've learned, but this back button seems to work pretty well. You can also click this feature here, all timesheet features, to access other timesheet reports that you have been privy to. Right here, there's a refresh table button. And then you can search the tables using the filter by name field. And then right down here, you can access the report that lists folks who have not submitted timesheets by clicking this link. So this link down here would tell you AmeriCorps members with outstanding sheets, and then you could see which ones that you still needed to approve, I'm sorry, which ones that you would need to contact your member for so that they would get it done. Okay, so that was sort of the overview presentation for you on timesheets. I know it's a lot, and you will need to, go around the America Learns platform to sort of get a better idea of how it all looks and works. And I will be here to assist you. I'll be sending you some, like I said, the slide deck and any sort of supportive materials to kind of get you going on that. They also have support that you can look up on your own. There is a support button on the homepage right there. And there is a support center with videos and slide decks also. So as you see down here, Impact Suite Bootcamp timesheets. And there'll be like one for supervisors and one for members. And so you each get different directions for dealing with timesheets. All right, so that's sort of an overview presentation on how to do timesheets and complete your member profile. So does anybody have any questions right now? Yes, Carla, we will be getting these slides in addition to the recording. Absolutely, as Bev answered. I'm so glad that Bev and Kathy St. John both think America Learns is very user-friendly.
It is, and the support staff are really helpful, and it really helps that Susan Vega, who is helping us design this, was actually had my position in AmeriCorps and worked with AmeriCorps members for years in the earlier iteration of the CLLS AmeriCorps initiative. And so she really gets it. And I think that she's really done a fine job of thinking, with her literacy program hat on to make this easy for everybody.
Yep, exactly. She's wonderful. She's been super helpful for me for sure. All right. So if nothing else for me, you always can reach out to me via email, of course, or a phone call if you're having some problems. And I understand it was a lot for me to learn too, so I can understand that. So the next part of our presentation is about our website and what is available there for members. Paul, did you want to take over here?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Okay. And actually, Paul, while you're transitioning, we did just have a question, and I'm going to ask Bev to answer this because it's a little nuanced, but Lisa just said that, one of the performance measures that we're collecting data on is that the expectation is that AmeriCorps members will assess learners. And so, Bev, can you address how, why was that one of the performance measures that was decided upon, and how, if staff members are already assessing learners, how does that not duplicate or supplant what they're already doing, and why is this something that we want AmeriCorps members to do?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kathy. So part of the purpose, and a big part of the purpose of AmeriCorps, is so that members learn things. They learn new job skills, they learn about worlds they may not have experienced, and teaching an AmeriCorps member how to do an assessment is really one of those fundamental skills. I felt the same way when I was the first AmeriCorps supervisor. I was like, that was my favorite part of the job. I love assessing people. But actually, one of the things that happened in my AmeriCorps years is the capacity of my program grew and grew and grew. And I could no longer meet all of the individual learners that came in through my library system. And so it was very helpful that AmeriCorps members learned to assess potential learners. Just as I included this in tutor training, which is how do we assess the learners who come to the program? What do you need to know? What does this assessment tell you? I would expect that AmeriCorps members would learn how to do an assessment. And it's a really, really good idea to offer them a mentored experience. Part of this experience is supposed to be mentoring. So if somebody can learn to do an assessment and have you mentor them, and I understand it's a very sensitive thing, but it meets many goals for the program. So if one of the goals is to do outreach to bring in more learners and more tutors, then having more people who have the tools, who understand what goes on, who can tell potential learners what happens in the assessment, why it isn't scary, what we want to learn, why we ask the questions we do, that's an asset to your program. And it's also learning for the members. So it's not taking away. I don't consider it something that qualifies, as a non-duplication or, non-displacement. We're not asking AmeriCorps members to displace literacy coordinators or to duplicate what literacy coordinators do, but we're asking them to learn, and we're asking them to increase the capacity of your program. So it's not like the AmeriCorps member comes in day one and their assignment is to do all the assessments in the program. Right? You have to think of it from a different lens, and that's the learning lens, right? What are we helping them learn to do that builds their skills, because they're there because they want to get something out of it, but also could potentially be of assistance to your community. So remember, AmeriCorps members have then turned around to be literacy coordinators. Imagine if they hadn't learned assessment skills during that AmeriCorps year, if they hadn't been exposed to it. It's just wonderful job training. It's a wonderful way to learn more about our programs. So I just would say, kind of think about it a different way, and think about a lot of these questions about, but I do this, or this is the way we do things. Think about how can we help AmeriCorps members learn, and how can this potentially increase the capacity of my program and make the world a better place. So,
and I'd like to add to that to really speak to the program capacity building aspect, because I worked with a program in Arizona who had actually trained volunteers. So they had volunteer assessors. So they had trained them extensively. They provided oversight, but the capacity that built into their program, that they were able to, get people off their waiting list and to conduct reassessments. And they said that it was hard. It was hard for staff to give that up, because they felt like that was something that they wanted to do. But with training, they saw the huge benefit that was to the programs. And not everybody's going to be, a great assessor. So that's where the training comes in. But I know that in my program, we could never keep up, especially with reassessments, and those reassessment dates went by and we would feel guilty because we just couldn't do it. And so this is a great way to actually do that initial and reassessment. Okay, Paul.
All right, so I wanted to quickly go through the website, because we're going to try really hard to get the latest, greatest documents up here for you. So this is your first place to go if you want to find resources or the training material that we're talking about during the training here. So the first, of course, is to go to Literacyworks AmeriCorps.org. And this brings up the home page. And then if you click on the tab Resources, we have even going way back to August 10th, we have the Bev slideshow on introducing CLLS, the initiative, and the agreement. But down here we have the latest, greatest member service agreement that Kathy talked about, and the member position description. And there's that customizable member application template that we talked about. We're going to have a project timeline up eventually and a calendar. We've got a photo release, if you need a photo release template for your members. We have checklists. Someone in the chat just said the checklists were useful, so good. We try to get those up there. And then here's a link to America Learns. And here's for the payroll, we're going to need the W-4 on your members. So there's the fillable W-4. And then here's the direct deposit form that we have that I will need to enter your member into the payroll. So they get direct deposit twice a month. Okay, and then under training, this is where we're going to put all the training up. So here's the onboarding of America members, and these are the portions of the training. Prohibited and unallowable activity training, the national service criminal history checks training, the true screen and fill print. So if you go there, that's where we have the one pagers on how to go through true screen instructions, and also the fill print instructions. So they're all there, up to date. And then we have some archive trainings. We have our first site supervisor training up on our YouTube channel. And then we also have the PDF of the training. Okay.
Yeah, so and Paul, just to make sure, people are asking, will there be these slides, will this PowerPoint slide presentation be available in addition to the video recording? And yes, not as a PowerPoint, but as a PDF. And if you're like me, you know, I'm sitting here and all this information is washing over me. I'm not very auditory. I would need to then sit down with the PDF of the slides. I would need to review it so that I could read it myself, really think about it, and then keep it as a reference tool to go back to time and time again when a particular question or issue comes up.
Mm-hmm. So we'll have this training up hopefully by this weekend, and for you to access. And then if you don't know by now, this is a description of the initiative and AmeriCorps vision, which is, and if anybody requests, I will do a dramatic reading of the vision. I've done it for Kathy and Lisa already, but so, and then of course, this is our information, our contact information. We have a frequently asked question page. Some is on there. This I has found useful when I was reading up on AmeriCorps, but this is a glossary of terms. So we use a lot of different terms for different things. So this is the official AmeriCorps glossary of terms right there. And then there's relevant guidance on living allowance, and just some general questions that we've already had. When do I get paid? And the answer to that, AmeriCorps, part of the Literacyworks AmeriCorps initiative, receive bi-weekly stipends. Will I get training before I start? You know, so those are general questions that you guys have already been asking. All right. And then of course, contact page that you can email us. Okay. So that's the site right now. We will have a calendar, as I said, and but this is your go-to for the latest, greatest information.
And
okay.
And we really encourage you, because we're trying as best we can to respond to your emails in a timely fashion, but there are so many emails coming in, and sometimes we just can't get to them as quickly as we'd like.
Yeah, somebody's at the door. Okay, I'm
So Kathy does want you to access the website for that kind of information. If you're not hearing back from us immediately and you're in a hurry, it's available there and hopefully easy to find for you.
Mm-hmm.
Bark, bark.
So that's my presentation on the Literacyworks AmeriCorps website. So Kathy, you're muted. What's next?
Thank you, Paul. Let's see.
Okay.
So now that's the end of our presentation for the training today. So we would definitely love to open it up to any questions, any and all questions that you have right now.
And I will stop recording at this point.